Let's talk about Umaga. He's going to be working with John Cena on a lot of the house shows. It's usually Cena getting a win by DQ because Umaga is this undefeated monster at this point. And that's not really something that Cena, as our hero, has faced yet. What did you think of the Cena Umaga dynamic, the run that Umaga had been on as the Samoan bulldozer who was undefeated? I mean, another talent, and we say this unfortunately all too often, gone way too soon, but a special performer. And I'm curious how John enjoyed working with him and what you thought of that matchup.
Every person that was given the opportunity to share the ring with Umaga loved Umaga. Eki was great. He was easy to work with, got it, didn't need a lot of umming up, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. No, man, I got it, bro. Umaga was just, man, that kind of athlete that you were comfortable with. You could go out and you knew that he could do anything. And you also knew that by giving your body to him, that you were in the safest hands you could possibly be in. Umaga was one of those generational talents that only comes along every once in a while. It was a charisma, an unspoken charisma. And everyone believed in him. And everyone had, that regardless of who you are and what you think you are, you still had that little bit of fear of Umaga. Because as sweet as he could be, he was also one of those guys that made you believe he had a switch that when flipped, he was an uncontrollable maniac. So yeah, I think that Umaga was excellent. I think the audience saw through to the dangerous Umaga as well.
Have you had a chance to see his son perform? I think he debuted a couple of years ago with your pal Booker T and Houston's Reality of Wrestling, his promotion there. I haven't seen any of Umaga's son. Have you managed to see any
I
of his
have not.
stuff? I just can't help but think even more about Umaga these days with all the success of this bloodline storyline. Golly, man, what a special talent. He would have just been enjoying all of this so much, I'm sure. Other times
Absolutely.
we see John Cena team with DX. Yeah, they brought back DX. This isn't the one we grew up on. This is the second iteration, I suppose, maybe the third. It's Shawn Michaels and Triple H. What a six man. John Cena, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. That's a lot of people who grew up in this era. That's part of their, or the bulk of their Mount Rushmore. They're going to be taking on Umaga, Edge, and Randy Orton. I mean, that was a big match then, but now with the benefit of hindsight, man, just bona fide Hall of Famers everywhere you look. Those had to be really fantastic live events.
They were because it was six guys that loved to get in there and work and be able to go and just have fun every night and learn and grow. So that in and of itself helps the match. When you got guys that want to try new things and that want to, their sole purpose is, all right, let's go out and entertain this audience. And it becomes a contest amongst themselves.
Right.
Who can get the biggest pop? Who can get the biggest boo? Who can get this crowd off their butt if they're not really into it so far? So yeah, it's six great talent. Of course, it's going to be great.
Of course, the real feud here is John Cena and Umaga, and they're actually going to get set up for the Royal Rumble with a last man standing match. And John Cena is going to retain there. That happens at the Royal Rumble. And Meltzer would say, this was one hell of a well put together match. You'll see a lot of better wrestling matches and more fluid, but as well as a scripted brawl with weapons where both guys came out looking great, this was top of the line. Most of the match was Cena almost having Umaga finished out, but Umaga kept coming back up like a monster. And Bruce, the rumor and innuendo was that, accidentally, I'm sure, Umaga was knocked out at the finish of this, and that created some issues. And I know it's live and it ain't ballet and things happen, but can you confirm, do you remember him being knocked a little loopy here. And what's going on in the backstage area when you realize, something happened, but they're professionals. We should trust everybody and see, let it breathe. Or is it, we need a backup plan. Let's start thinking on our feet. What happens in a moment like that where something like this happens?
No, he wasn't knocked out. He was choked out. And John had the ropes around Umaga's neck. And when he pulled back, Umaga had this big, like, there's a picture of it, big necklace around his neck. And the rope got around there and it just cut off the supply of air to his carotid artery. And very much like a sleeper hold,
Yeah.
Umaga passed out. And he just passed out. So it's not one of those where, hey man, you good? You good? And somebody say, yeah, and they're not good. Or no, and he was out. He was snoring. So obviously John didn't mean to do that. It's just it was a spot in the match, but big man went out.
Yeah, the STFU with the rope. It's a 4-star match according to the Observer. Who cares about star ratings? But I am saying this has got to be one of the more spectacular last man standing matches, not just in WWE history, but in wrestling history. Like, maybe it's not your favorite one of all time. Maybe you can name one you prefer more, but it's got to be on a short list. Where does this rank for you as far as last man standing matches?
I thought it was great. I thought it was great because it took two guys who can take the stipulation, all right, of the last man standing and be able to make it larger than life, make you want to see based on their match, make everybody else want to see a last man standing match because they got it. They used the stipulation to their advantage in the match. A lot of times you'll have a stipulation match that the stipulation or whatever it is only gets used once or in the finish. This set the stage. This set the stage that you can beat a man anywhere in that arena. And the fact that it finished right in the middle of the ring makes it even better. And to me, I thought it was masterfully done. Simple to understand.
Go out of your way to watch this one. If you're looking for a great wrestling match to watch today, one maybe you forgot about, this last man standing match with Umaga and John Cena is the one I would recommend. I want to ask you, just philosophically, we've talked a little bit before that you considered, and I think this is the phrase you used, New York was a babyface territory. Whereas maybe in the Crockett's, they would have a heel champion like Ric Flair and all the baby faces chasing. Vince and his father maybe preferred the Brunos and the Hulk Hogan's, and now perhaps the John Cena's. And I'm curious, like, you've had this unbeatable monster that you've built, and it's working, it's believable, it's credible. He has an unbeaten streak. Was it ever considered, what if we just go with Umaga here, let him win the title, and then have Cena chase a bit? Or at this point, are we too close to WrestleMania? You already have that in mind. You can't change course.
Well, first of all, you're on course. Second of all, I think that overall, when I say New York, I think WWE in general was a babyface promotion because you had your top guy was normally very popular with fans and sold merch, sold action figures, did everything else, okay, for the company. And the company was represented by this guy with a smile on his face and had a positive message. In that regard, wasn't just New York, it was everywhere that the company went.
Right.
Including international, everywhere else you went. They went into, the Carolinas in a traditional NWA territory or whatever that actually meant at the time. And still that babyface champion was met with the same kind of accolades as anybody else. And I think that it was a way, it was an education. It's a way that the audience had been brought up for so long and eventually changed and got to experiment and got to get a taste of both. but both are something that you have to educate the audience with. You've got to get them on board. You got to get them on board to love that champion and come to see him keep and overcome evil. And on the other side, if you have a heel champion, you've got to have baby faces that you believe are going to come in and beat that champion on that night when you're there. That's what you're paying for, man. You want to see him come in and beat him. And if he doesn't get beat, you at least want to see him get their butt kicked.